After multiple problems with failed corroded taillights on my boat trailers, I decided to do something about it. This video shows how I converted my permanently mounted taillights into removable ones, eliminating the problems of water intrusion and inevitable failure. This entire project cost me about $40, but it's really the long-term payoff in eliminating all the hassles down the road that'll really be nice. This is what my old lights look like. These are not the original ones, as I've replaced them at least twice in 3 years. They, like many others, are marketed as being submersible. I've tried a few brands on this trailer and my other boat trailer, and believe me, submersible is an accurate description, but waterproof is not. This particular failed brand was called Optronics and are available at big box stores. These happen to be incandescent bulbs, but I've experienced the same problems with LED versions. None of these are waterproof. When you back your trailer in and those lights are sitting 3 feet underwater for 5 minutes, water will penetrate them. Granted, salt water is particularly harsh, but fresh water will eventually do the damage too. So I decided to give these a shot for my project. 2 new tail lights off Amazon for $16. They too had the assuring submersible descriptor as part of their ad. One feature that caught my eye was the 2 sliding track mounts on the back. I wasn't sure at first if I'd use them, but they turned out to work great. The other items I bought were 2 of these 4-wire trailer harnesses for $10 a piece. My trailer has a 7-pin vehicle connector, but you only need to deal with 3 wires on the back end near the taillights. Here's what the items look like out of the box. For starters, I will say you get a bunch more wire than you'll need. I only used about 2 feet of the 25 feet I paid for. There's actually a better option to avoid that, which I'll explain in a bit. These taillights are thinner than the ones I just removed, and they're LED versus incandescent. After checking them closely, there's no way these are waterproof either, as expected. If anyone has any experience with a brand of taillights that lasts in salt water, please leave a comment. Here's the old left side trailer light before it was removed. The trailer bracket is built for a longer rectangular shaped light, but in a pinch to get on the road, I had replaced them with these square ones. They don't fit perfectly, but they worked. You can see the new ones are the same size, but they're thinner. Here are the 2 pieces from one of the boxes of the wiring harnesses. The shorter one is typically referred to as the vehicle side cable, and the other larger one is the trailer side cable. It really doesn't matter which cable you attach to your existing trailer wires and which ones to the new lights, but it's best to keep the left and right sides consistent, and it's important to splice the correct wires. This is typically done by simply color matching the wire joins. Here you can see the left side as yellow, brown, and white wires. I've used wire nuts in the past to connect the lights, simply to make replacing the corroded lights easier. This is a typical 4-pin trailer wiring diagram. The white wire is the ground, yellow and brown run down the left or driver's side, and the green and brown run down the right or passenger side. As I mentioned earlier, these particular lights have a channeled slot on the back. I wasn't sure how this would work out, but it turns out to be the perfect solution. The square-ended attachment bolts make installation and removal very easy. The lights did come with the hardware, but I ended up buying some wing nuts at a local hardware store to make it even easier. To utilize the channel slots on the back of the lights, I knew I had to lower the lights down a bit on the trailer bracket due to the existing protruding lip above the lights. Once again, in a pinch to hit the road, I used what I had. In this case, it was a piece of OSB plywood. I drilled 4 holes in each of the boards, which you'll soon see how they're used. And then I proceeded to paint the plywood so that it would look a little nicer on the trailer. Hey, don't judge me on my poor painting process. I'm a fisherman, and the bite was hot, so you get what you get. I decided to use the trailer side cable for this part of the job. That's the one with 1 female and 3 male pins. I started on the left side, so I'm connecting yellow, brown, and white to yellow, brown, and white. I should mention that on some trailers, they are grounded with the white wire, and you won't have a white wire in the back of the trailer. In that case, you'll have to come up with a method of attaching the harness's white wire directly to the trailer. This is usually done with a metal tapping screw. I'm using this thermal grease to protect the splice and the inside of the wire nuts from corrosion. You could solder the wires and use a heat shrink tubing, which I'll show you shortly. I chose these wire nuts here for convenience in case of a needed change later. I found that this method works and is rarely the point of failure for the lighting. These connections have lasted me years, while the lights have failed after 6 months. This is what you'll get after making the 3 connections. As you can see, I left the green and second brown wire alone. You could add some electrical tape to the unused terminated wires if desired. My trailer has a large enough hole in the end of the box tube framing where I can hide away these wire nuts. On the right side of the trailer, I did the same thing, but of course using the green, brown, and white wires. I leave the yellow and the second brown wire as unused and simply terminated. I use the other trailer side connector, which is 1 female and 3 male pins. A quick note on parts. Notice that in this example where I'm pointing to the trailer side connector, it looks slightly different. It has 1 female and 3 male pins, but doesn't have the protective shroud around the pins, like the one I used. They're the same type of connector, though, and I just wanted to point out the differences so you don't get confused. So just be aware, what I ordered and what came in the box didn't exactly match what the picture showed on Amazon, and you may end up seeing the same thing. Earlier I mentioned another option to save on wire waste. You could use 2 of these trailer wire extensions, like this 26-inch one. The next step is to connect the lights themselves to the wiring harness. In this case, I used solder and shrink wrap tubing, as you can see. I connected both lights to the vehicle side cables, which have the 1 male and 3 female pins. The left side was yellow to yellow, brown to brown, and white to white, and the right was green, brown, and white. To tidy up the lights, I wrapped the wires in electrical tape. Since these pieces will be mounted and removed regularly, I wanted everything to be secure. And here's the finished product. Although I don't show it, I should point out also that the left light typically has a white light attached to it for the license plate. That's how you know the difference between the 2 lights. And action. Okay, cut. Let's go to take 2. I mentioned drilling 4 holes into the board I'm using to mount the lights. I lined up the 2 upper holes with the 2 existing holes on the trailer before drilling. I used 2 appropriately sized bolts and 2 lock nuts to attach the board. I tightened everything down since this board will be permanently mounted. The lights came with some hardware, however I decided to replace the nuts that came in the package with wing nuts. This will make it easier to tighten and loosen the connection. As mentioned before, the mounting channels incorporated into the back of these lights turned out to work perfectly. The square ends of the bolts lock into the channels, making it easy to turn the wing nuts without the bolts spinning. I'll put a link to these lights into the description of this video. At this time, I'll mention that I realize there are other options for removable lights, including those that incorporate magnetic mounting brackets and wireless technology. Hey, I'm old school and I prefer something that I know will hold strong on a bumpy road and doesn't require batteries or chargers and a master's degree to install. I use the terminal grease not only to protect the connection from corrosion, but to help lubricate it. This is off of Google in case you're wondering. While often used interchangeably, terminal grease is essentially just another term for dielectric grease, meaning both are non-conductive substances primarily used to protect electrical connections, like battery terminals, from corrosion by preventing moisture intrusion, with the key point being that neither grease should be a conduct for electricity. Here's how the lights look fully mounted and wired up. It's important to give each light the obligatory shake, and whether it's verbal or mental, say, "That ain't going nowhere." And just like christening a boat with a bottle of champagne, this is just as satisfying. Here's the first test of the lights. Let's see how things go. Well, as you can see, things worked. I wanted to demonstrate in real time how long it takes to remove and install the lights using this configuration. Trust me, I know when you pull up to the boat ramp, you don't need another item on the checklist before backing into the water. But in this case, I think it'll be worth it. Nothing worse than pulling your boat out of the water at sunset, only to realize the taillights don't work and you have an hour drive home in the dark. So here I'm showing that in well under a minute, I'm able to remove and replace these taillights. Also, I recommend when you do get to the ramp that you unplug the lights from your vehicle. This will avoid any electrical problems and shorting. Well, it's so far so good. I've used the trailer several times since the modification. I've had no problems. And like I said, the extra effort at the ramp is minimal in my opinion. If you found this video useful, consider subscribing. I try to make videos on topics other people haven't covered or didn't fully explain. Hope to see you on the water. Thank you.